Hey, my name is Steve Hinton, and I serve as a pastor and author.
And I'm your co-host, Matthias. I serve as a personal trainer and a volunteer at my local church.
We want to welcome you to The Man Identity, a podcast that is dedicated to calling up young men into purposeful manhood, which is ultimately found in Jesus Christ and being made in the image of God.
In a culture that is often deliberately set against young men, we're here to intentionally build hope, clarity, and strength into the hearts of these men who are searching for purpose. Together, we will face tough issues head-on, throw down some weekly challenges, and have some fun along the way.
Because solid manhood is not automatic, but rather it's a choice. We're here to walk alongside you and encourage you to live out your authentic identity in being made in the image of God for a purpose larger than you have ever imagined.
So join us now for another episode of The Man Identity.
Hey, well, everybody, we want to welcome you to another edition of The Man Identity.
Yes.
And a little bit special today. It's different. I'm not just going to say different. I'm going to say special. It's different because all of our episodes up to this point, we've had a guest, and I'm excited about some of the guests that we have to come, especially I've got a British guy in a few weeks by the name of Justin Brierley, who's written some amazing books. He's got a podcast. I referenced him in episode 1, but a lot of our program has been around getting the right guest and interviewing them, getting some wisdom, and putting some application together. But in addition to that, I thought it'd be really cool, and I kind of had this idea from the get-go that part of our goal here at the Man Identity is to bring wisdom to young men to help them become the men God's called them to be. And some of that happens by just being in the presence of older men and hearing their conversations. So what we want to do today, and I think we'll do this periodically throughout this season and next season, and you know, and Matthias, I'm envisioning many seasons to come.
Many seasons, hopefully.
Yeah.
God willing.
And so what we've done is we've taken some questions. And again, I remember back in July on my kitchen table and drawing up like 50 potential episodes. And in addition to that, just looking at some questions that either young men are articulating, they're verbalizing, or maybe they're not, but they're thinking it, or they're questioning it. What does it mean to be a man? How do I grow as a man? Mm-hmm. How can I go forward? So I thought what we would do today is just kind of look at a few of those. And so the challenge, I guess, would be, guys, you know, I don't know, grab a Diet Coke or a coffee or whatever.
Diet Coke is good.
Yeah, and you know, sit down at the, you know, figurative table with us and just join into the conversation.
Yeah.
Matthias, if that will work, you know, kick us off. What is one question that we ought to address today?
Yeah. So we were essentially looking at a list of all these things that men need to learn or need to know to grow, and one of them in particular stuck out to me. It was let me see here. It was work on becoming the man you need to be before expecting to find the wife you want.
Yeah.
And that one kind of stuck out to me because I got married early on, which I know is not necessarily the norm for my generation or even the generation now, more so. And as I was looking at this list, I was like, well, a lot of these kind of go into that aspect of becoming the man you need to be before expecting to find the woman you want.
Right.
So I was like, well, why don't we take some of these and kind of put them in that category? And we kind of chose the most, or I kind of picked the ones that I was like, you know what, I think these are really important to have as somebody who wasn't ready, as somebody who got married. I got married to my wife 9 months after meeting her.
Right.
Pretty sure you know that. So,
and that's a fun story.
Oh, it was a fun story. It was a rough story.
You've got an amazing wife.
Oh yes, I know. She's amazing. We worked through so much, and I'm so grateful to God to have such a loyal, faithful, loving, kind, and gentle wife. You know, so it's taken a lot of work to get to where we're at. So I think I've got a unique perspective that maybe some people in this generation don't necessarily have. So we're starting off with one, and Steve, I want you to kind of go in on this one. It's get a greater goal for greatness. I saying that 3 times fast.
Get a greater goal for greatness. Yeah, I want to hit that, but in just a couple of comments on the whole marriage thing, that you're right. Men are getting married slower.
Right.
Fewer men and young people in general are few. There are fewer marriages today, and when men do get married, they get married later. And I don't want to say, you know, grab the first girl you can. You know, this is the biggest decision next to following God. So you want to make it right. You want to make sure it's the right girl.
Right.
but not to be afraid of the idea of getting married. You go back 2 or 3 generations, and men were married in their early to mid 20s.
Yeah,
they were in a career, and that there's a culture shift in that. And I laughed the other day. I was preaching a sermon on marriage, and I made the observation about, one of the fun things about getting married early is that you can raise your kids earlier.
Yeah.
So, when they get out of the house, you're not 80 years old.
Right. And so that way, when you actually have money, you could still have the energy to do things.
That's right. That's right. So, but I think that's a good observation that a lot of times guys they're looking around for the right girl. And I could say this for ladies too, trying to look for the right guy. And I think about it this way. If you find the right girl, the question is, if she's the right girl, is she going to be attracted to you? In other words, the right girl is going to be looking for the right guy.
Right.
So before I find the right girl, I need to get to a place where I'm becoming the man God's created me to be, so that when I do find the right girl, she's going to say yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to be trying to figure things out, because the right girl is going to notice that, and she's going to go on. But that, the first one, get a greater goal for greatness.
Yes.
Two illustrations that come to mind immediately on this, Matthias, even from this past week. And number one, Lord Nelson, and you history guys may know him, British admiral. And that would be a side note. I'd really encourage guys to read history. But Lord Nelson, British Navy, would have been during the Napoleonic Wars, the late 18th century, early 19th century. And he was a great naval officer, statistician, great leader, empowers leadership. But he actually ditched his wife. He pulled into, I think it was Naples or something like that, and he was there for several months, and he had an affair with a younger woman, and just said, "Yeah, I'm done with my wife." So the point being, the culture looks at this guy, says he's great. Well, at the end of the day, he left his wife.
Yeah.
Second illustration, pretty much the same thing. Unfortunately, and we talked about this, I'm cursed to be a Dallas Cowboys fan.
From episode 1.
Yeah, we did. And go back and listen to that episode.
Look at his mug. Again.
Actually, that's a Texans mug today.
Whoops. I missed it.
But on Netflix, there's a documentary on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And Monday is my Sabbath day. And so I started watching that. And in the late 80s, early 90s, a guy named Jimmy Johnson took over the Cowboys as the head coach, and he led the Cowboys to 2 Super Bowls. And we would look at Jimmy Johnson and we'd say, man, that's a great leader. He's a great leader. But within a month of his taking over the head coach position, the Dallas Cowboys, he divorced his wife of 27 years. His thought process was, I don't have time for marriage. I don't have time for marriage because I want to be the best coach I can be. So there's a tension, guys, between the greatness in the world and what true greatness is.
Yeah.
And Jesus talked about that in the text that I want to read. And let me unpack the text. It's in Mark chapter 10. And 2 of the disciples, James and John, they come to Jesus and they say, "Hey, Jesus, we want to be at your right and your left, in the established kingdom of God." In other words, they're working on power. Who's going to be in control?
Yeah.
And Jesus picks up Mark 10:42. Jesus called them together. He's calling all 12 of the disciples, but he calls them all together. He says, that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great. So Jesus is not saying don't shoot for greatness. Mm-hmm. But whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus isn't saying, slough off your responsibility, be weak, be passive. But what are we being great at? Mm-hmm. We have a craft. We talked about that with Marshall. We have our abilities. So we want to strive to do the best we can.
Yeah.
But what is the goal?
What's the motivation too behind it?
Okay. Yeah.
So that because it has me thinking, okay, if we're creating this podcast if our motivation is to become the biggest podcast just because we want to be on top, we want to be great, that's the wrong motivation.
Right.
Now, if we achieve greatness in this podcast, amazing. God bless that.
Right.
But our intention is to serve an audience, to serve men, to help them grow in understanding of what it means to be a godly man, and things like that. So I think I think it has a lot to do with motive.
Yeah.
What's driving that? Is it a servanthood, or is it just a desire to be first?
Right.
Desire to be the best.
Right. And part of that ties into the identity. When we have our identity established in being a son of God, we can be at peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if our identity is being, president or coach or, CEO.
Yeah. If it's where we get our value from.
It's where
your motivation, if you don't have that foundation, I found that in my own life just from, I told you, I think we talked about it on one of the past episodes, I think with Steve Spicer, finding my value in my achievements, my accomplishments because of childhood traumas that I had, or that's where I place my value.
Yeah.
If I put my value there, I'm going to start making that my mission is to be the best, be the greatest. Because if I make it here, I'll finally feel worthy. I'll finally feel valuable. Rather than going, I'm a child of God, I'm going to do this for his glory.
Mm-hmm.
And if he blesses it. If he doesn't, that's okay. He's going to have me serving him in another way.
And I think in addition to that, keeping eternity in mind.
Yeah.
Because God sees the big picture, and we may miss out. There may be some opportunities where we miss out in worldly greatness, but our wives will appreciate us for it. Our children will appreciate it for us, and the ripple effects will just go down and down and down from there. And I could tell you lots of stories of men who did great things in the eyes of the world, and their kids didn't want to have anything to do with them.
Yeah, because they're just so focused on that. They completely neglected their children.
Right. And God sees the big picture, and even though the world may not recognize greatness in us, God sees it. And I think a final note on that, one other passage, book of Philippians chapter 2, Paul, he likens us, not likening us to Jesus, but he wants us to look toward Jesus. Philippians 2, picking up in verse 3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but to the interest of others. In your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in the appearance of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. So you're looking at the perfect man, Jesus. So Jesus was God and man. Mm-hmm. We would say he's the greatest man, yet he took the most humble position. So we need to get a greater, if we're going to be the men we need to be, we need to get a greater goal for greatness. And that's not walking above people to get to our goal. Mm-hmm. It's actually serving and allowing God, trusting God.
Yeah.
We don't want to go into marriage, using our wife as a stepping stone, to get to what our other goals are.
Absolutely not. But yeah, I think that verse really speaks for itself, kind of just ties all together the nature of servanthood that we are to have and to bring into marriage. And I think when it talks about being the greatest and doing all these things that we were talking about, it's about being a servant and that being your motivation. And I think
servant leadership.
Yeah. And I think from this, we can taking that same mindset into your marriage, not just being the best husband or being this or that. It's how can I best serve my wife, or how can I best serve my children? Whether that's doing something that they need, which they don't want, or, whatever it may be, servanthood is the mindset that I think really take from this too. Especially to your wife. So with that in mind, I know I've heard this phrase a lot, and I know the viewer probably has, reject passivity.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah. The biblical illustration is Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, everything's perfect. Satan comes into the picture, and Satan begins to tempt Eve first of all, begins to lie about God, deceive Eve, and she takes of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the text tells us she gave some to Adam, who was there, and he took it as well. Now, the point being, and there's a book, and I can't remember the author. The title of the book is The Silence of Adam. Silence of Adam. I can't remember the title. But the point being is that Adam was held responsible for the sin because he wasn't deceived. So the connection being, he knew this is bad, and he didn't move in to save his wife from it.
Right.
He saw this is not a good situation, but he just stepped back and he let it happen, and he followed along with it. And guys, I would just encourage you that I know that there are a lot of forces in our world today that are just whooping up on young men. A lot of forces that are saying young men are stupid, they're toxic, they can't do anything, or if they try to do something, they're jerks. And
a lot of negativity towards Gen Z, Gen Alpha, brain rotted, and this and that. Their goldfish brain, whatever it might be. Like there's a lot of negativity towards the younger generations right now.
Well, and men in general as well, because it's a tidal wave now, but it's been a trickle going on for quite a while, and sometimes there's a feel of, well, I'm just going to sit back, passive. And I want to encourage you guys to not be passive, to be active, to go forward. And sometimes I believe that part of the problem is there's a fear of making a mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm reminded of a quote by Winston Churchill that said, success is going from failure to failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So I just want to encourage young guys to just try it. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're going to see a girl and you're going to think, man, she might be a good lady and for a wife, and you're going to invite her out and she's going to tell you no.
Yep. That happens.
It's going to happen. But we're seeing a lot of passivity. I was running some statistics earlier today for another meeting. I was looking at Houston, and 2 years ago, the demographics for young people who were enrolling in college, not just applying for college, but enrolling for college. And I looked at the numbers. It was like 212,000 people in Houston in 2023 who enrolled in college. And 42% of those were men, opposed to 57%, almost 58% were women. And I've seen that statistic for a long time, that we have more and more ladies who are going to college than men. Now, not bashing ladies. I think ladies ought to go to college. And I'm not saying that every guy needs to go to college.
Right.
Some of those men are thinking, well, I know what I'm going to do. There's a career, there's a job. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are a lot of young guys who just aren't doing anything. Hey, I want to be married someday. Well, get a career.
Yeah, get a job.
Get a job that's more than a...
Yeah, that's got direction. I think a lot of this is trying to find direction and purpose in life. For I was laughing a second ago because you said, fail. What was that quote you said?
Yeah, Winston Churchill's success is going from failure to failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
I was thinking of my son yesterday because he's a highly exaggerated version of me, and he loves to skateboard, and that's all he talks about. And he every time we got to skate, he starts freaking out about something. He falls off it trying something new, and he starts getting really angry. He's like, I don't like falling. I'm like, then you can't skateboard if you don't like falling. You're going to fall a lot more than you're going to land things. I said, that's just part of it. I said, falling's okay. You're going to just keep falling. Just keep trying. Yeah. And that's what it made me think of, because he loses his enthusiasm every time he falls. But yeah, so that got me thinking, and you said being afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
I think finding purpose, because for a while I struggled with my purpose. I was like, Lord, like, I have my job, I have my career. I know I'm providing for my family. That's a big purpose in and of itself. But it's like, I've always had this thing inside of me that's just like, it's like trying to do something more. I'm trying to fulfill this purpose that I feel like I'm not fulfilling almost. So it's like I'm searching for it. And after the whole thing with Charlie Kirk happened, it kind of lit a fire in me. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm seeing, and I'm not going to get on all conspiracies or whatever here, but I'm seeing these things, and I feel like I need to do something about it. Like I may not have a big following, but I've got a voice and I've got some knowledge, and I've got to do something about this. I can't just sit back and complain, be passive if
Right.
if I feel like there's something I could do about it, regardless of if I'm going to make mistakes in my videos and my script or whatever. So, that's what really started me. That's what kind of lit that fire, that purpose in me. Okay, here's a purpose I can serve right now where I feel like I'm passionate. I think a big thing in this is maybe there's a lot of guys out there that they want to have a purpose, but they may not know what it is or what they're passionate about.
But they need to try something.
Right. And I think, because I was praying for a long time, I was like, Lord, like I want to make some kind of content. Like I have a passion for it, but I don't even know what I'm passionate enough about to make or how to go about it. And then I prayed and prayed and prayed. And, I think you really used that for me to kind of spark ignite a little light in me to kind of kick me into gear. So I think ultimately, if you're at that point, you're like, I know I want to do something, I just don't necessarily know what. Pray about it, but also be on the lookout. Don't just sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to wait for God. Be on the lookout. Try new things. Say maybe I could do this. Go try to serve in this way or this way. So be active. Pray about it, but also be active in trying to figure out what it is you're passionate about.
And a lot of times people think that I got to get that sweet spot. I have to find the perfect job, the perfect career.
Yeah.
Well, that's good when it happens, but the most of life is just getting up, getting out of bed, doing my job, going home, loving my family. A lot of life is just routine.
Yeah.
But it's the day in, day out that make the big picture. And, using another football term, we play for the long game.
Yeah.
And sometimes the sweet spot doesn't come until you're in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or your 60s. But if you don't get on the horse,
you can't get to the sweet spot.
Yeah.
I kind of take that too with like this, with the podcast. You kind of get analysis by paralysis, especially if you're going to start something new that you're nervous about.
Yeah.
Like if we sat around going, okay, we have to make sure the first episode is perfect.
Right.
Well, no matter how hard we tried, we're always going to look back and go, oh man, we could have done that so much better, after we have practice doing something. So that kind of, I think, is the idea of what you're saying. Get on the horse, because you're going to get down the road and go, wow, look at how far I've come. You're never going to start anything perfect or the exact way that you want or envision. But it's just kind of just do it. Just get going. Try it.
Yeah.
So
rejecting passivity, you're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to do it wrong. But you know what? You just keep up and you just get up and you just keep going.
That's it. So with that said, I think we can kind of tie into here now, serving, because we talked about serving in the first part, reject passivity, kind of get on the horse, go. And the third point we got here is get down off the bleachers and onto the field to serve others.
Right.
So Steve, what necessarily do you want to kind of focus in on this regard? Do you mean like at church? Do you mean just in life in general? Do you mean so can you kind of clarify what you mean here for the viewers?
Well, you mentioned church, and that is an illustration because we live in a very consumer driven culture. And when it comes to church, so many people are looking for a church that will serve them, meet them. So they're going around looking, okay, where can I find a church that will give me this, this, and this, instead of saying, okay, God, where do you want me to serve? Yeah. Well, that problem didn't begin in the church. That problem ultimately begins in our own heart.
Yeah.
That we're selfish, but it just permeates the culture that we live in today. And it's the idea that we're up in the bleachers watching the game. Hey, bring me my popcorn. I want my Bud Light. I want my slushie. I want my Coke, my Dr. Pepper. I'm watching the game. Matter of fact, I could really use, a pillow in my back right now. It's raining. Please get me an umbrella. It's all about me.
Right.
But God actually created us with a purpose. And, we could even talk about work on this, the fact that God created us to work. And part of what has come to be known as the Protestant work ethic was this idea that God has created me. He's given me an ability, and I am to worship him by working my ability out.
Yeah.
So, and you even think about marriage, that I go into this marriage not, okay, I'm expecting this woman to serve me, but what can I do to serve her?
Yeah.
So guys, part of being a man, a real man, is asking those questions of, I'm not going to be passive. So how do I serve?
Mhm.
How do I serve my wife, my future wife?
Yeah.
How do I serve the people in my church? How do I serve the people that I work with? Ultimately, I'm not the king.
Right.
Jesus is the king. So I serve him. So getting a mind frame, and Jesus even said that the Son of Man, which is a messianic term for the Messiah,
Mhm.
the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, give his life as a ransom for me. So if I'm going to be a man, the question I want to be asking myself is, okay, how do I serve?
Yeah.
How do I serve my community? How do I serve my family? Yes, to the context of the church. And guys, I want to encourage you. You may not even know Jesus yet, but go find a church body because we need that community. And then when I get there, the question is, hey, how can I serve? What area is it the tech ministry? Is it the physical property ministry? Whatever it might be, what can I do to dive in, to get my hands dirty, to serve someone else instead of expecting them to serve me?
Yeah. No, I think this is a really good one. So kind of getting off the bleachers, and I'll kind of use my marriage as an example. So before I really got married, I grew up Christian, but before I got married, I really didn't go to church. We got married, obviously, we had a 3-month-old that she's technically my stepdaughter, but she's my daughter. And so having a kid kind of changes your perspective. And so I'm like, okay, I want to lead my family in the Lord. So we're going to start going to church, right? So we start going to church, and, it was at a little school instead. So we had to set up everything and tear down everything.
Yeah, I've been there.
Every Sunday. So they had a need for people to set up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
And I am not a morning person, but I said, okay, they need help. This because the guy that really kind of brought me back into faith was from this church. So, I'm like, I not that I owed it to them, but it's like I wanted to serve because I'm like, man, this is what brought me back into faith was the guy coming from this church who anyways. So I got involved setting up early in the mornings before church. Well, every church we've gone to since then, we found some kind of way to help or serve or set up or do whatever. And now it's so much so to the point that it's, if I come on a Sunday and I don't have a task, like I'm not on the soundboard, I'm not doing this or that, I feel really weird just sitting down and listening to the message. I'm like, okay, well, can I help pass out the, communion, or can I do this, or can I do that, or can I help you clean up over here?
Well, there's got to be that balance because
right.
even me, I sit under teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to other preachers in different ways. So there is a point in time where I do want to participate in the worship service. But I'm going there with the intent of, okay, God, what do you want to teach me? But how can I bless others?
Right. And I think once you start thinking that way for so long, it's kind of the same concept as, okay, how can I serve my wife? Like, so my wife and I don't know if this is just from childhood trauma or what, but we are both very overstimulated very easily. And I think that's a very popular term with this generation and Gen Z and Gen Alpha. People get overstimulated. I don't know if it's from media or whatever it may be.
We got the cell phone in front of us all the time.
Oh yeah. So we're always stimulated by things, but my kids are so loud, and not in a bad way or, but they're loud kids and they're just kids. So it's all that to say is my wife gets very overstimulated. She's a stay-at-home mom. And I get to drive 30 minutes in my car to my next client. We talk, I help them work out, and then in my car again in silence, listening to a sermon, listening to whatever I'm listening to, So I may be exhausted because I get up early for work some days,
right.
But my wife is mentally exhausted. She's mentally fatigued from the constant questions from the kids, the constant screaming, the constant yelling and playing. And, so I know that when I get home, she may not be physically exhausted from being up early, but she's mentally just worn out. She can't think straight. So
she hasn't been talking to any adults all
right.
day
Yeah.
long.
And then she's had no adult interaction. So it's just been craziness. Being a stay-at-home mom is the hardest job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade her.
No, and the world doesn't recognize that.
No, they think it's just you stay home and
that.
you cook and then, it's easy. No, I could never do it. But all that to say is, I got to get in the mindset of, okay, because I was a selfish person before getting married and even after getting married for probably a while and didn't even realize how selfish I was. But, I've kind of gotten the mindset now. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home, tell my wife to go to the room for a bit because I know she's probably about to go nutso, and tell her just sit on her phone, calm down. I'll get dinner handled, or she already has dinner handled. I'll just get the kids, play with them for a bit. We'll have dinner, and then she can go back to the room, whatever. And it's when you frame it as serving like that, instead of thinking, oh, I got to go home and do more things. If you look at it as like, okay, I'm going home on a mission to serve my wife. I've noticed that if I have that mindset rather than, oh, I got so much more to do, it's almost like it gives you the energy because you're on a mission. And I think that's just how men are wired. If we're on a mission, we're going to make it through, you know? So I think all that to say is once you've been serving for a while, you kind of get in that mindset of it's a mission. I'm doing something. And you kind of get in the groove of that in all aspects of life, and especially with serving your wife. But yeah, it's
and that can be extrapolated into the culture as a whole, that we live in a very selfish society. It's, you know, what is my marriage going to give to me? What are my parents going to give to me? What is my job? You know, what is the church? But then it's like, okay, what is the government going to give to me?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter about the policy. The only thing that matters is what am I going to get out of that? And our culture, because we've moved so far away from a Christian mentality, it's all about me. So the challenge in regard to this, a real man will get out there. The first question is not, what am I going to get? The first question is, okay, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to serve? Whether that's my wife, whether that's where I work or my school or my city or whatever, how do you want me to serve instead of who's going to serve me?
And I think, and we'll just kind of wrap this up here on this point is this kind of like we're saying, we're tying everything into that work on becoming the man you need to be before expecting to find the wife you want. Well, it's like if it kind of goes back to that concept of what I was saying is when you kind of get into that flow of serving, and kind of get into that like a habit. I don't know what the right word would be, but you kind of get into that groove. You take that mindset because you start living in that mindset, and you take that into marriage with you. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to do before you get married, is because it kind of helps you learn. Okay, how can I do this for my wife?
Yeah.
So we could tie that up there, and I want to kind of go into the next one, which is finding purpose in everything you do.
Right. And that. Here I am, I'm 56, and there are times that this gets me too. Because there are so many times in life it feels like this is so meaningless, this is so menial. But it's not. It's those little details. And, there are a couple scriptures where Paul kind of talks about this. Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And, ultimately, it's this reality that we're serving God, not man. But my goodness, all the way down to, I'm flipping burgers at McDonald's. Well, you know what? I want to be the employee there that the bosses don't have to gripe about.
Yeah.
I want to be the one who's doing the best I can. I'm cutting my grass. Whatever it is. It doesn't mean that we become OCD and perfectionists, but we're not sloughing off.
Yeah.
We're not being passive. We're realizing that if nothing else, I'm doing this for God. I'm picking up trash. I'm in my office, and and going down the hall, and there's that coffee cup that's kind of off to the side, and 40 people have walked by and just passed it by. I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah.
and so there's purpose to my life. And again, it also ties into the service that I'm doing everything for the glory of God. I'm doing everything to serve others instead of being served. And I'm seeing reason in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So finding purpose, and I thought, I didn't even read this part of the page that you had printed out for our notes. That's the exact scripture I thought of, was doing all for the glory of God as the purpose, which I'll tell you, I'm convicted a lot of whenever I'm in my day-to-day, because there's a lot of times when I want to gripe and complain about, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, I have to do this in thanks to God and giving him glory as if it were for him. I'm not working for my boss. I'm working for God in this, and having that good attitude of being grateful for it. Now, I think finding purpose, and we kind of touched on this earlier with trying to find purpose in everything, because we kind of get in that routine of life, and it starts feeling almost devoid of purpose, even though you're serving a purpose. Like as a father and as a husband, I know I'm serving a big purpose in doing that, but part of that routine, it just kind of kills that drive in knowing you have a purpose in it, when you don't see the big picture of it, or when you can't see the end game of it. And this kind of ties in where I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. And I prayed, and I was like, Lord, just show me something I'm passionate about. Because I was getting depressed, seeing like I have no passion for anything. What's even my purpose if I have no passion for anything? So I think really searching, like we talked about, we'll kind of tie this in earlier from that earlier is finding purpose. Look for something you like to do. Look for something that you can do passionately for the Lord outside of the routine of what you're doing. But I think it's good to do everything you do unto the Lord, but also try to find something that's outside of your routine that gives you purpose, that kind of gets you going. Because sometimes, and this is just purely from a psychological standpoint, is I think it gets you out of that routine. For me right now, it's editing videos. Like whether I'm editing this podcast or whether I'm editing my own videos, it gives me something like, okay, I'm giving myself purpose right now. I've got a moment in the day, my wife's asleep, I'm going to edit this video because I do all my editing on my phone, but, or something like that. It just kind of it just gets you going. It keeps you going.
Right.
And I think in marriage, and this isn't necessarily just for your wife, but, it's kind of hard to explain the mindset of where I'm coming from with this. But it's like when you start having that lack of drive or passion for something new or for something you're really striving for. Because it's like, okay, everybody has a job. Maybe not everybody's passionate about climbing the ladder of their job. Right. Or maybe there's no ladder to climb. Like for me, for example, there's only so many clients I can see in a day, but I want progress in my life. And I know every day I'm with my wife, I'm with my kids, I'm making progress, making my children more and more disciples of Christ. I'm with my wife every day. How can I love her better? How can I serve her more? But for my family as a whole, monetarily speaking, and for myself, passion-wise, how can I keep myself going without feeling like I'm getting in this routine? Because it's like I love routine, but once I'm in just routine for too long, I start feeling depressed.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding something that keeps you going, keeps you driven, and gives you purpose outside of everything that is kind of the obvious purpose you have. Does that make sense? Am I wording that?
Yeah. Well, I believe there's a balance in that, Matthias, because as men, we do the next thing even though we don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. I can even think about times in my life that I came to a position where it's like, man, I don't want to do this, but it's not about me anymore. I've got a wife, I've got 4 kids, I need to take care of them. But the beautiful thing about trusting God is that as I'm faithful and just getting up every day and doing the next right thing as a man, but I'm also praying, I'm also watching and looking, God will bring opportunities before me. Mm-hmm. There can be a problem when I get ahead of God because I get anxious or I worry.
Yeah, that brings the scripture to mind. Remind me where it is because you're a pastor. It says, what is it? Seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added unto you.
Yeah, Matthew 5, 6, something like that. Yeah. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and all these things will be.
Yeah. When I start feeling myself obsessed about things or thinking I'm too focused on something and I catch myself, I have to think, okay, first seek the kingdom of heaven and all these things will be added unto me. Okay, what's the kingdom of heaven for me right now? Well, I'm building up my children in Christ.
Yeah.
I'm loving my wife like Christ loves me. That's my first mission.
Yeah.
Am I focused on that first right now or am I focused on other things right now more so?
Yeah.
And I have to bring myself back to reality and check myself with that. So I think that kind of ties into what you're talking about with balance there.
Yeah, and let's be honest, being a man is not always fun.
No, it's a balancing act.
It is, but it's that trust that at the end of the day, God sees what I'm doing, and God's going to honor it, and God will bring the opportunities at the right time. And I even think that the man identity is a perfect illustration of that. Made the observation in our first episode that I've been praying about this sort of thing for like close to 12 years.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to do it because it was the next cool thing to do.
Yeah.
But as some pieces came together, when I was asked to write that article about Andrew Tate, and I heard the podcast by Justin Brierley there in England, and a number of other pieces, and the Mark Men for Christ event in London, and then more conversations with you, it was as though God were saying, okay, now, Steve, now's the time to do that.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't faithful in all those years of just getting out of bed, doing the next right thing, this opportunity may not have come. So, as we begin to land the plane on our episode today, and I love the way you put that together, this idea of, okay, I want to be married someday, but I need to become the man I need to be first.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reframe my mind about what greatness really is, what serving really is.
And I didn't realize this, but a lot of and we didn't even plan this, but kind of a lot of the conversation with a lot of these points, ultimately led to serving
Yeah.
in some way or another.
Yeah.
So I thought that almost like while we were talking about this, I was kind of having this revelation, like everything's about serving.
Mhm.
You know, I just thought that was an interesting direction it took that we didn't even plan on it going.
Yeah. So I think for a challenge this week, guys, I would ask you to just sit down with a sheet of paper and write up 10 things that are needs. You know, a need in your family, a need in your apartment complex where you live, or a need in your church, and just say, okay, here are 10 needs. Out of these needs, what are 2 or 3 things that I can do to meet the need of someone else? So I would challenge everybody before you show up for, the episode next week to say, okay, here's some areas that I have served. I mean, if you're going to be a real man, you need to become a man who serves others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great challenge because I definitely didn't serve in any way, shape, or form before I got married. So I think that's a really good one to do. Absolutely. All right, Steve. Well, everybody, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of The Man Identity. We'll see you next week.
What is the phrase? Subscribe, like.
Subscribe, like the video,
stuff.
Follow whatever platform you're on.
There it is. If this is an encouragement to you, we do want to ask that you share it with your friends, family, post it on Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever there is, and be strong.
Be strong.
Be strong.